Well, I think sometimes a common misconception is that mindfulness is about going to Thailand, sitting on a satin pillow with orange and
Yeah,
saffron robes, surrounded by 10,000 candles going all day.
yeah.
It's about paying attention on purpose.
Paying attention on purpose. And when something is difficult enough that it requires a lot of paying attention on purpose, that's where you can help get yourself into a
Time
mindful
flies helps
state.
them focus and get away from the chatter in your mind. One of the things I particularly appreciate about Piscator is when he introduces the concept of gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
uh, for where he says, Mary, sir, it shall be given away to some poor body. For I'll warrant you that I'll give you a trout for your supper, and it is a good beginning to offer your first fruits to the poor, who will
Mm-hmm.
both thank God and you for it. So the idea is what Viator was talking about. What if we have too many fish?
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Well, we're grateful that we caught them. We will share our bounty.
Right. Right. And this is brought up a few times earlier on as he talks about taking the fish, or as the both of them then describe taking the fish to the various inns they visit and have it then prepared for dinner for them by the innkeepers or the
Yes,
chefs at the
yes.
various inns. And that is a very, very important part of not only what they're doing and what they're part of their traveling, but and he would argue a part of fishing.
And
Going
he
all
also,
the
what does a fisherman need? Probably above everything else, and that's patience.
right,
So
right.
he introduces patience when he said, "Well, scholar," and he calls Viator a scholar often. You must endure worse luck sometimes, or you will never make a good angler.
Well, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
He talks to him about patience, and he talks to also about the concept of radical acceptance. He says, "Look, you scholar, thereabout we shall have a bit presently, or not at all."
Yeah, that's right. You have to be able to accept that either one of those things might happen.
Well, do you think they'll win? Do you think the Pirates will win the game tonight? Well, here's the correct answer. Either they will or they will not.
They will or they will not, except not tonight because they're not playing
That's
tonight.
correct. They're off tonight.
But they're playing tomorrow.
Yes, they are playing at home. And baseball's another Zenish type of sport.
Yes, that's very, very true. That's very, very true. But I have never seen a complete angler for baseball. I wish there have been a couple fictional attempts at philosophizing baseball, which I think have been unsatisfactory. But there should be. There really, really should be, because you'll get some of this from Sandy Koufax, and you'll get some of this from some of the more thoughtful players. But I think we really need a compendium, and we need somebody to write it up.
Well, there's Zen in the art of motorcycle
The synonym
maintenance.
of motorcycle maintenance. Again, it's another very complicated, a highly intensive learning task, and that's why I produce that great piece of literature.
Quite often, what we speak to people in here when they find some discomfort, most people, a lot of people I deal with, particularly in the 12-step world, Professor, always feel like they were awkward and they didn't fit in.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
And we're help people find their tribe, but they want to fit into a place where they really are uncomfortable.
Yes.
But however, they want to, because they view these people as successful or popular, social. They want to fit into that group, so hopefully they'll be like them. So Piscator says, "Trust me, brother Peter," speaking to his brother, "I find my
Mm,
scholar to be so suitable to my own humor, which is to be free and pleasant and civilly merry, that my resolution is to hide nothing from him." So he found just find your tribe.
yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. But that's very, very true.
Your vibe creates your tribe. Maybe you've
Yes.
heard that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the vibe that Piscator put out resonated with Viator.
Yes, that's right. I used to think while reading this book, the many times I read it, someone should take the text, because it is old fashioned, right? And it is in some ways hard to understand. But someone should take the text and write almost paragraph by paragraph a modern version of it, saying that this is, the same thing, but in modern language so people understand it. And I flattered myself at many stages in my life that I could do such a thing. But frankly, listening to you talk about it, I think you're the one who should write the modern version of the Complete Angler.
Well, I think it's an absolutely excellent book. So, and again, we refer back to Thomas Merton and what he said about most ills of the world can be traced back to greed, lust, and self-love.
Hmm.
And when he talks about for courts of full of flattery, the city full of wantonness, and all are full of pride.
Well, and nothing will make you feel more humble than this kind of fishing. Nothing will make you feel more humble than playing the golf to the certain level, the certain focus that you want to. Nothing will make you feel more humble than believing in something so strongly that you write a book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
And Piscator goes on to say, but old the honest countryman speaks truly from his heart. His pride is in his tillage, his horses, and his cart.
Right, right. And who can disagree with that when you think about it?
And this is really only the third time I've read it, and is amazing. So he talks about the value of friendship, and quite often we talk about what true companionship and true friendship is, Professor. Sometimes I'll ask people, I'll say, if everything else were taken away from you, your health, your money, whatever, who'd be standing with you at the end? Who'd never leave you? Or I'd
Right.
say, who do you trust so much
Yeah.
in your life that if they said fall, you'd fall without hesitation because you were certain that they'd catch you?
Yeah.
Those are the relationships to add to and reinforce. The rest of life is meaningless nonsense.
Yes. Right. And for so many people, we try running around to make as many friends as we can, and they end up being shallow friends. Not because they themselves are shallow, but because they're not your closest friends. They're not your family. They're never going to have this. They're never going to catch you when you fall backwards.
Most of the friends we have are friends of commonality.
Yeah,
And
which
once
is fine,
it's
but it
cool,
has to
that's
have that
absolutely.
place. It has to have that place.
Absolutely. Friends of commonality are wonderful, but we often talk about on this show, Professor, is that life is like a huge ocean with currents running in it. Sometimes those currents run concurrently
Yeah.
and they part through no fault of their own. I'm sure there's many people who you have no animosity or ill will towards. They're just not flowing anymore. And
No, that's right. Yeah.
many. So Piscator says that a companion that is cheerful and free from swearing and scurrilous discourse is worth gold.
Yeah. And we should remind the listeners, as we said at the very beginning, that it's this dialogue between the two that draws out all this wisdom. You know, as you said, Viator or Piscator refers to Viator as scholar. Viator at various times referred to Piscator as master because it becomes a master a teacher student relationship. You know, it's because he has to see the depths of what his student needs that he's able to bring out what he talks about.
You spoke about the lengths he goes to state how to prepare the fish to be tasty
Mm-hmm.
and to be succulent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I took that as to what we do with people, Professor, is to we don't want to change anybody. You certainly can't change a perch into a trout. However, what we offer to people is lifestyle enhancements and lifestyle changes, which I kind of took in all this preparation, the seasoning, the marinating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the same fish. It's still a
Yes.
trout.
Yeah.
However, it's so much more.
Yeah, and there are even cases where he talks about it isn't the perch, and forgive me, listeners and viewers, I can't think of which fish it is off the top of my head, but he talks about how most people don't like that fish when it's prepared. They say it's too watery. It's just not a good cooking fish. You can't get something out of it. And he says, well, if you do these things, you can take even that fish and make a very, very fine dinner out of it. And so you can cultivate friendships in different ways. Sure, people that you only meet at work might be too watery in the sense that they're always going to be shallow friends. But if you cultivate them the right way, they'll turn into friends that will catch you when you fall.
And one of the most impressive parts of this book is his attention to detail
Yeah,
and how he labels and describes the markings on flies and particularly caterpillars.
yeah,
The
yeah.
caterpillar was especially uh, meaningful to me, as this is where the full impact mindfulness tattoo comes from.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about, and I know for those of you who are viewing or have heard this before, please bear with us. So, in the beginning of The Wizard of Oz, it's filmed in what color, Professor?
Black and white.
Yes. And when Dorothy goes through this tumultuous life of hers, signified by the tornado, she lands in Oz, lands on one of the evils. Okay,
Right,
one of the
right.
witches.
Yeah.
Okay. However, when she opens the door of the house, everything is in
Is in color.
color. So many people have not had the opportunity to witness an actual chick coming out of its egg, or perhaps a butterfly coming out of its cocoon, but it's a lot of effort.
Oh
Much,
yes,
much
yes, yes,
action and
yes,
effort.
yes, yes.
So the idea behind this tattoo, and I have to credit Fame 15, uh, Sarah Ruth and Laura Early, who made these designs.
Hmm.
Were kind enough to do that. Find creative agency. Most people are in a dark place in their lives through whatever
Right,
circumstances.
right.
However, through the action and effort, they can spread their wings through action and effort, and they can also turn their life into color also.
Right. Well, that's certainly true.
And that's the effort behind that. I am so glad you turned me on to this book, because it's one of the best books I ever read.
Yeah, and I think there are an awful, awful lot of people who agree with you.
Apparently, since it's the third most printed book in the English language. Uh, so I particularly, there's so many things I particularly liked in this book. When Viator, he talks about how he can't do the type of fishing that Piscator can.
And thinks oh no, I never will get there. I'll never be able to do it.
And he says, I am very glad of that, but I've had no fortune. Sure, master, yours is a better rod and better tacking.
Yes, that's right. He's missing the point. Missing the
Yes.
whole point. Yeah.
It's a poor workman who blames his tools.
Yeah.
So what did Piscator do? He gave him his rod
That's right.
and his tackle
Yeah.
and asked him to fish with it.
Yeah.
So he said, I lent you indeed my fiddle, but not my fiddlestick, and you are to know that everyone cannot make music with my words, which are fitted for my own mouth. So he said, I can give you these tools, but I can't give you my experience.
No, that's right. That's right.
You have to earn that.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's showing him also that you can't blame the tools. Here I am giving you what arguably must be the best fishing rod, but is up to you, and you will turn it into something different than what I've turned it into. And it'll be just as good in parallel, but it will be different.
He continually turns to gratitude. They were at one point in a shower, and they were underneath a tree. And he says, and now, scholar, my direction is for fly fishing is ended with this shower, for it is done raining. And now look about you and see how pleasantly the meadow looks, nay, and the earth smells as sweetly too. Come, let me tell you what holy Mr. Herbert says of such days and flowers of these, and then we will thank God that we enjoy them and walk to the river and sit down quietly and try to catch another brace of trouts. That's gratitude.
Yes, absolutely.
Being in the moment.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And making the best out of whatever moment is presented to you. Lots of people would take that shower and just use it as an excuse to go home.
Yes.
But it's
However,
not only an enlightening thing naturally, but it is a very teachable moment.
Amazing. I just become just amazed with this. And also, it's not just about catching the fish, it's concern, much like Native Americans had concerns for the buffalo and the animals that they took, for they viewed themselves as stewards of the earth.
Yes.
And they were concerned. So many people view when Peter Stuyvesant snookered the Indians out of Manhattan for $24 worth of beads, when the real reason was the Indians had no conception that land could be bought or sold.
Well,
that was beyond them.
Yeah.
They couldn't.
That's not my period or my specialty, so I don't really know, but that's what I'm told. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They couldn't imagine that. They couldn't imagine land being sold
Mm-hmm.
or somebody owns it.
Mm-hmm.
They just couldn't imagine that. But the compassion that Viator begins, as you can see in this book, Viator begins to blossom also and flower.
Yes, absolutely.
But when he
changes, his character changes completely from page one.
But master, will this trout die? For it is like he has the hook in his belly.
Yeah.
The concern for the fish that it's going to be hurt.
Right.
That it feels pain. Just absolutely immense. So,
and that's the one they release, I think, if I remember right. I can't remember. There's one that they release, and I think that's the one, but I could be wrong.
So Viator is showing compassion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And being human.
Absolutely.
So quite often what we talk about is when you have a flower and you want to make it bloom, what are the three things, essentials, Professor, that are required to make a plant bloom?
Water, sun, and tilling. I don't know.
Yes, good soil, right.
Good soil. Right?
So we liken that to water is taking care of your physical body, the sunlight being some connection with something. That's also grown, we call it the sunlight of the spirit. And the dirt is the environment, the people that you plant yourself will. So there's a paragraph in here that he describes that nicely about where sheep in one pasture will be more contented and taste better than others, and goes into that type of thing. Or trout in one stream being different color than another, and
that's right.
The environment in which you place yourself, and that all involves active choice. Well, my hope is that everyone have the honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness to try to take and read this book with an open mind.
Yes. And an open mind throughout the whole thing. Because as you say, it takes a while to get into it and get the rhythm of the old language that he uses. It's kind of like reading the King James Bible. It is, after all, written in the 1650s. You can't just expect it to be like a Hollywood script, because it's 300, 400 years before those were invented.
And Izaak lived to a fine age. I believe he was 89 when he passed.
Yeah, right.
Amazing.
Which was rare then.
I can't imagine, well, of course I can imagine, that I've never come across something like this before.
Well, I think people they think sometimes when I talk to people about this, I've talked to these people about it a lot for, as I say, 30 years. They think it's just a fishing manual, and then why would I be interested in that? Why would you be interested? You don't fish. Or if I explain it, what it's really about, and then they read it and they think it's too Shakespearean. And again, that's why I recommend the edition that you have. It's because it's what's called the Charles Cotton edition, or no, I shouldn't say Charles Cotton. It is called the I'm sorry, yes, it is Charles Cotton edition, and it is much more understandable. Right.
So we look at things like this, Professor, and in Appendix 2 in the 12-step book called The Spiritual Experience, there's a quote by Herbert Armstrong, who I believe was a contemporary of Charles Darwin, and he states that there's one sure principle that will keep a person in everlasting ignorance, and that principle is contempt prior to investigation.
Right. Well, that certainly counts for history and history understanding.
And you look at a book like this and you think, oh my gosh, these guys are ancient, and this must have been written a long time ago. You look at a couple of the words,
yeah,
I'm not interested in this.
But keep going.
Contempt prior to investigation. Open your mind. So perhaps, Professor, I've enjoyed this so much, and I hope our audience has also, that we're asking you not to make yourself a stranger, and perhaps there's other subjects we could explore also.
Great. Well, I know a lot of books sort of in this vein, and there are a lot of other sort of history books that take these sorts of approaches that are worth looking at.
Well, if you throw them up in the air, we'll bat them around.
That'll be great.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And if anyone has any questions or comments or concerns, you can certainly contact the show, and we'll address each and every one of them. And as always, at the end of every podcast, we offer a free prescription: fruits, nuts, and vegetables. Unplug your television and take up fishing.
Yes.
And for a truly mindful experience, we suggest that you fish without bait. Do a kindness for yourself, do a kindness for another. Forgive yourself, forgive another, till all are free, none are free. Namaste.
Please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast. If you're interested in flying the colors of Fishing Without Bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.